Paducah Police Chief James Berry talks about some of the issues surrounding gun purchases in Kentucky. Candy Freeland reports.
It's much easier to purchase a gun in Kentucky than in other states. It can make for a more difficult job for law enforcement personnel because it's difficult to know where the guns came from and who's selling them to whom.
Some states, they really know how many weapons you actually own. Connecticut, you can't buy a weapon without paperwork and the waiting period and everything else. Kentucky doesn't have that. And I know there's pros and cons on this issue of knowing the history of that weapon, who actually owned it. Some people don't like that, but in my profession, in my business, I need to know that.
Berry says the best place for consumers to purchase a gun is at a retail store that specializes in them. And he offers this advice to all gun owners.
There is nothing wrong with owning a gun. It's the person behind that gun and the mindset behind that person who has that gun. If you get a weapon, you need to be educated on the use of that weapon. You need to respect that weapon and what its capabilities are, and go get training and know the laws.
Finally, Berry says he would never purchase a gun from someone in the community unless he knew them personally.
In her interview series with Paducah Police Chief James Berry, he offers advice to gun owners and those looking to become one. Candy Freeland reports.
Police Chief Berry says to those who are looking to purchase a gun, make sure you know who you're dealing with.
I would never buy a gun from someone in the community if I didn't know that person personally, because I don't know where that gun came from. You can find out the first purchaser, but beyond that, you could have a gun and you find out later on down the road that gun could have been used in some crime somewhere. I wouldn't want it.
Turns out gun laws in Kentucky are more relaxed than in other states. That makes it more difficult for law enforcement personnel to keep track of them, to know where the guns are coming from, who's selling them to whom, and exactly how many there are in the state.
Some states, they really know how many weapons you actually own. Connecticut, you can't buy a weapon without paperwork and the waiting period and everything else. Kentucky doesn't have that. And I know there's pros and cons on this issue of knowing the history of that weapon, who actually owned it. Some people don't like that, but in my profession, in my business, I need to know that.
Berry advises all gun owners to take a safety course and become familiar with gun laws in their state.